good between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I've obviously been reporting that for some time. But Radar Online now ripping the lid off what they describe as their most brutal fight yet, why it could finally end their marriage. And of course, it is this total discrepancy between the unhappy couple in regards to how they treat their children and the commercialization of Archie and Lili specifically on social media. So we're going to get exclusive reaction from Rob Shooter of the brilliant Shooter Scoop Substack imminently. But first, let me take you through this reporting. Even though it's in Radar Online, I think it is worth noting that Aaron Tinney is the reporter behind this. He is a UK-based tabloid veteran who is deeply sourced on this stuff. So he writes, Prince Harry is locked in what sources described as his most brutal fight yet with Meghan Markle over how much of their children's lives should be visible to the public. In a clash, friends have warned Radar Online could finally end their marriage if it remains unresolved. The dispute has intensified since December when the Duke and Duchess of Sussex confirmed they were renaming their organisation Archewell to Archewell Philanthropies and said the move would allow them and their children to expand their global charitable work as a family. An insider said the issue has become a recurring flashpoint. Now, what's interesting here, Aaron Tinney's got a couple of quotes. This first from a source close to the couple, who says, this is an issue where they are fundamentally pulling in different directions, and no matter how many times they think they have parked it, it resurfaces again. That is why it has become their most brutal fight yet. It strikes at their identities as parents and what they believe their children's lives should look like. If neither of them is willing to bend, people around them fear it could be the thing that finally breaks the marriage. The love they have for Archie and Lili is unquestionable, but the same love makes every conversation heavier, more emotional, and far harder to resolve. Then from another insider who says Harry's protectiveness is rooted very deeply in what he experienced growing up, and those scars are still raw for him. He carries a lot of unresolved anger, that's the understatement of the year, about how exposed and packaged his childhood felt, and that has always made him acutely sensitive to even the slightest hint of his own children being treated in a similar way. From his perspective, there is no middle ground on this. Shielding Archie and Lilibet from that world is not optional. It is a core responsibility. He believes he owes them that as a father. Aaron Tinney goes on in this really interesting report. In private, Harry is said to argue his children should be shielded entirely until they are old enough to choose for themselves. The source said if it was entirely up to him, the children would be kept almost completely out of view, with their lives unfolding privately until they are old enough to decide for themselves. Harry understands that total anonymity is unrealistic given who they are, but his default reaction is always to tighten the boundaries as much as possible. He is deeply opposed to the idea that Archie and Lili should inherit any sense of duty or expectation or pressure simply because of their birth, and he is determined to spare them that unseen burden. Meghan, by contrast, is described as more pragmatic. Yeah, that's for sure. She wants the money. Our insider added, Meghan is adamant that there is no carefully plotted agenda behind how the children appear. She sees it as wanting the flexibility to include them in everyday moments without it being framed as some calculated reveal. Harry was the driving force behind keeping their faces hidden online, but Meghan often counters that their royal cousins are openly present on social media and play a visible role in the broader royal image, which makes total concealment feel inconsistent and, in her view, unnecessary. The source went on, from Meghan's perspective, keeping their children almost entirely out of sight creates its own problems. She feels that acting as though Archie and Lili are invisible only invites more curiosity, gossip, and scrutiny from the outside world. She would prefer a carefully managed level of visibility, particularly as Archewell Philanthropies expands and becomes more family-focused. How old are the kids again? Harry has not shifted from his position at all, and the standoff has sparked some very tense, emotionally charged discussions behind closed doors. Those close to the couple say the disagreements reflect deeper differences. Another insider, so a lot of people speaking here, at their core, they respond to challenges in completely different ways. Harry's reflex is to protect and pull inward, while Meghan's is to create, expand, and move forward. This disagreement is not an isolated flare-up. It keeps resurfacing in different forms. They are being cautious in how they handle it, but it remains one of the most difficult and unresolved issues in their marriage. And there is a real risk it could harden into a power struggle if neither side is willing to compromise. Well, the thing is, Rob Shooter, Harry has already compromised because Meghan is doing this. It's like, come hell or high water, she is is doing this. And I think he is losing the battle, but it does make him look like an absolute fool. I mean, remember the podcast appearance last year when he said no people at all, no parents at all should be posting their children on social media. It's like, well, have you spoken to your wife? She's doing it already.
Yeah, you're right here. I'd argue that he is not losing the battle here. He's lost it.
Yes.
From day one,
Yes.
it has been Meghan's way or the highway, and he has been quite happy with that. And if they didn't have children, I don't think that would change. There's something about having children. I don't have children, friends of mine do, and they do say it does change you fundamentally, maybe in a way that even a marriage or a wedding does not. And so Harry here looks at these two little kids and wonders about their future and wonders what's going to happen to them. And Meghan looks at these two little kids and wonders how fabulous their future can be for the whole family and part of the brand. It's a very Victoria Beckham way of looking at family, where I think Harry is more Mel C. He'd rather the kids be behind the scenes here. But this is the fundamental problem they have as a couple. They have a lot that they enjoy together. They're quite petty. The two of them like to have a good joke about people. They like to play the victims together. I understand the glue that holds them together. I do. But now I'm starting to understand too what is pulling them apart. And it's their fundamental disagreement on who these children are, what these children are going to be. Are the children's an extension of them? And so I think here that story, Radar has got it spot on. This is going to be the tension moving forward. What happens to little Archie and little Lilibet?
The thing is, though, Rob, where I think Harry is a bit delusional is that he wants to return to the United Kingdom. He wants to have this half in, half out arrangement. He wants the children to take on a royal role. Then you actually can't keep them hidden. The role is public. And even though I don't believe Meghan is at all thinking about the royal role, she's just thinking about the money. She's thinking about the commercial exploitations, right? She wants to exploit these two children in the same way that Beyonce exploits Blue Ivy, or the way that Kim Kardashian exploits Northwest. But if you actually look at this from a royal perspective, how on earth can Harry genuinely think his entire family are going to return to the United Kingdom and that they are not going to be photographed? I mean, it's just delusional. And actually, don't we have a right to see them, given they remain very high up in the line of succession, which is a whole other story? Personally, I don't think they should be there at all. But for the moment, they
hit the nail on the head. Whenever I try to think of Harry as a logical human being, I always fail. You just can't think of him like that. He doesn't think
so
that way.
Hypocritical.
Yeah, exactly, and has no sense of that. We all do things that are hypocritical, but I know damn well when I'm being naughty, when I'm being hypocritical. Harry, the rules don't apply to him. A friend of mine who's known him since he was a child said, this is a little boy. When people would walk into the room, they would bow. Adults would bow to him from day one. That has to stick with you.
Yeah.
And so he's had the most extraordinary upbringing, some great, some not so great, but it really has changed the way he thinks, and he doesn't think like the rest of us. He wants it his way, always. He wants to be half in, he wants to be half out. He wants to press attention when he wants it, but not when he doesn't. And it just doesn't work like that. And instead of trying to work with the system, which his brother has done pretty well, and his father has, Harry and Meghan are trying to blow it all up and then yet be part of it too. I just want to say quickly, because I find this so interesting, the only thing that makes Harry and Meghan interesting is the one thing they're trying to run away from, which is the royal family. And so I think they've figured out
the royal family and their children.
That's right. The only reason we care about you, the only reason we're talking about you right now, is the one thing you're trying to run away from. So that's why I think they've figured it out. That's why Harry's trying to get back in. That's why Meghan's changing her tune a little bit, because they tried to pull away, and what's happened? Nothing. Nothing they've done has been successful. The only two things that have been successful is the Oprah Winfrey massive interview where they certainly talked about the royals, and Harry's book Spare, which was only about the royals. That's their brand. And I think they've figured that out a little too late, maybe a lot too late, but that's what now they are dealing with. How much do they want to be part of this royal family? Not as a family, but as a business.
Well, Rob, can you believe how bad things have got in America? I mean, just look this week, for example. just announced this new appearance from Prince Harry, this public speaking gig. Now, according to Taz posted on this, the most famous person for running his mouth and invading the royal family's privacy is going to be a keynote speaker at the International Association of Privacy Professionals Global Summit 2026. Is it April 1st already? But the problem is, have we not just seen Rob? He'll speak to anyone who's prepared to pay him what? It's not even that high a sum. I mean, it is for us mere mortals, right?
Yeah.
But for a big public speaker, it's not even that high a sum. You can probably get Harry at your event now for, 100 grand.
I hear even less. I think 50,000 they'll turn up. I know they wanted, when 5 or 6 years ago, they wanted $1 million. They'd hired Barack Obama's booker, who booked him on big speeches. I think they also worked with Oprah, Gwyneth Paltrow too. No, now you can get them for 50,000. It's right now. I'm giggling because it's just so ludicrous. The person that has revealed more about the royal family, the person that has invaded their privacy more than anybody, is now going to be the keynote speaker at a privacy summit. It's just so funny. They don't find this funny, though. I'd have more respect for Harry and Meghan if they did find it funny, if they were in on the joke. I know a ton of celebrities. When I worked with Jennifer Lopez does not sing that well. She's aware of that. That's why the look is so important. She's in on the joke. These two, they don't find anything funny about themselves.
No, they take themselves way too seriously, and it is a huge issue because, I mean, just this week, or overnight actually, it's just emerged that Harry has written a foreword to a new book, right? And this new book is about Africa. And it's Steve Boy's book, and it's titled Okavango, The Source of Life, Exploring Africa's Lost Headwaters. It's released on March the 3rd, and he is talking all about Africa being his second home, right, in the foreword for this book. I mean, look, he clearly didn't write it himself, does he? He doesn't write anything himself. But I just thought about it, Rob, and I'm like, again, he's making a huge mistake here by leaning into the Africa thing at the moment, because it's like the only story that anyone should be talking about Harry in regards to Africa is the fact that he has run one charity into the ground, Centre Bali, and then been removed amid accusations of racism, misogynoir, and bullying. So that's the first thing after Dr. Sophie Chandoka, remember, had that big falling out with Meghan Markle. But the second thing is the African Parks charity, which he still remains the head of, at least in some capacity, which is now subjected to rape and human trafficking and abuse allegations. It's like, you might think that Africa is your second home, Prince Harry, but you are no longer someone who is viewed as having the Africans in your heart and soul because of the way that you have destroyed these two charities.
Yeah. I think you're on something here. A couple of points. Never ask somebody to write a foreword to your book who has a ghostwriter. So I don't think he wrote Spare.
No,
so
he didn't. He definitely did. He probably regrets
So
most of it now, but he can't. Problem is he can't piss on his own book.
That's right. I'm not even sure he read it. I don't think he even read it before it came out. So don't get somebody who can't write very well to do your forward. And secondly, Africa's a very tricky subject for Harry. There was a moment when the royal family did expect him to leave. Before Meghan, they thought he'd end up in Africa. They thought he would live there and do charity work there. And I think that actually made peace with that. I think it was a good place. They all knew he was trouble. Even before Meghan, they knew he was trouble. I think for William and Kate, having Harry in Africa as an ambassador of the brand was probably a good idea. What has happened is that once Harry left the palace, he didn't realize that all his successes up to that point had not been his. It had been the institution. They are, love them or hate them, that royal family, that palace, that firm is a well-oiled machine. If they want to start a charity, they've got people within the institution that know how to do it. If they want to raise money, they know how to do it. Once Harry left, he lost all that, and he was a one-man band, and he hadn't figured that out. I've worked for some really big companies, and I knew part of my success was the company, the infrastructure, the lawyers, the managers, the advice. Once you leave that company, You're by yourself. I figured that out. Harry didn't. He thought all along the success was his. Fatal mistake. He was just the poster boy of the
Yes.
success, and all the real hard work, all the day-to-day work, all those tough decisions, they were made for him
He was being
behind the scenes.
protected. He was being protected for years. You're so right. He just had to show up. He had to smile. He had to
Yes.
make a joke. And they protected him entirely. And there was a certain arrogance to the way that
Mm.
he Mexited, which has resulted in so much of this stuff. Now, look, Rob, shoot a scoop on Substack, always the first with the news. And actually, I reported this from you, I think, on yesterday's show, but now overnight, the Times of London have backed up your reporting in regards to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And I mean, this was great detail and color that you had, Rob. The fact that he had visited this new home that he's been offered, and you quoted a source saying the moment he walked in, his face dropped. He thought it was beneath him, too small, too isolated. I mean, I'll get to what the Times is reporting on this in just one moment. But first, just talk to me about how Andrew coped when he saw this house, which, you know, for me would be a mansion. You know, I would live there in a second. But for him, what, he feels it's too much of a step down from his palace?
This isn't another Sussex spat. It's the one conflict that cuts straight into brand, money, and identity. This opening line is the thesis. Harry and Meghan aren't just arguing, they're clashing over what Archie and Lili are, private children, or a public-facing extension of the brand. Make it sharp. When couples suggest they left for privacy but then debate visibility, people don't hear parenting. They hear strategy. Harry's privacy line only works if he's willing to live like a private citizen. Meghan's managed visibility line only works if the public believes it's authentic, not Monetized. Radar is tabloid territory, yes, but the pattern tracks with what we've seen for years. You don't need to sell radar as gospel. Sell the logic. Harry equals trauma-driven protectiveness plus royal paranoia. Meghan equals media instincts plus curated access plus brand building. Say it plainly. This is exactly the kind of disagreement that never ends. It just changes form: photos, appearances, family, philanthropy, Netflix campaigns. If their relationship has a fault line, it's not the UK, it's the kids becoming content, even indirectly. The report is doing something important. It reframes this as identity warfare, not bickering. Underline the key phrase: it resurfaces again. That's what real marriage conflicts do when they're unresolved. Add heat. When both parents think they're protecting the children, compromise becomes impossible because compromise looks like betrayal. This is the kind of fight where both sides can feel morally superior, and that's why it can end marriages. Harry's no middle ground stance clashes with two realities. He still benefits from royal proximity. He still trades on public interest. You hit the key point. He talked about parents not posting kids, yet he's in a household where that line is already blurred. Make it sting. You can't preach privacy like it's a principle, then treat it like a toggle switch. Harry doesn't want privacy. He wants control of exposure, and that's a totally different thing. This is where you go in. The phrase carefully managed visibility is basically PR speak for controlled access. Meghan's argument is smarter than it looks. If we don't show them, speculation grows. But the risk is brutal. Once you set a visibility precedent, you're feeding the machine you claim to hate. The public isn't allergic to family photos. The public is allergic to family photos that feel transactional. Rob's line is the killer. Harry already compromised, and now he's negotiating from a weaker position. Your framing here is strong. Meghan's engine is expand, Harry's is retreat. Add a sharper twist. When one partner is the driver of the brand, the other becomes an accessory. Harry didn't escape being the spare. He just switched who he's standing behind. This is where you expose the delusion element without diagnosing him. If Harry wants half in half out and royal roles for the kids, then public visibility is not optional. So his stance collapses into one conclusion. He wants the perks of public life, without the cost of public life. You can't sell royal identity and total privacy at the same time. That isn't parenting, it's brand conflict. This is a brutal truth that drives your whole channel's engagement.
Horrified. He'd never seen a house like this. He thought this was a house that commoners, that muggles lived in. He didn't think this was a house for a royal. I think he thought this was the guest house, as if there was a joke. He was absolutely thrown. People, really close sources of mine, said he was shocked. Not only that he was being asked to live there, but that anybody could ever possibly want to live like that. He's not seeing a studio apartment in New York or London. That isn't how he rolls. And so I think for the first time, maybe since this big scandal broke, it really hit home that that's where your life is going to be. To you and me, Dan, I would love it. Look at it, it's magnificent, but it doesn't have a golf course. Andrew loves to golf. There's nowhere for him to go hunting, even though he's disgraced. He's still had people over to Windsor to go on hunting parties. There's no place for his horses. And so he was absolutely horrified that this is what he has been offered.
Well, you were completely right, as ever, Rob, because just today, this big feature drops in the Times of London.
You're welcome.
Deeply reported by Kate Mancy, the associate editor, who's clearly just read Shoot to Scoop. But what she basically is reporting is that Andrew now doesn't want to go to Marsh Farm at all, and is preferring the concept of going to Wood Farm, which is where Prince Philip lived after his retirement in 2017. So she reports, just like you did, despite extensive work beginning on Marsh Farm, however, it is understood that even this is now in doubt. A huge security overhaul is required to make it safe for Andrew. Builders have been working to install security gates and alarm systems, but the former Duke is said to be unhappy with the arrangement, and others have questioned how appropriate the accommodation is for such a high-profile figure. It means that the king may be forced to relent and find another property for his brother at Sandringham. But what's interesting, really interesting about this, is Andrew is actually being backed by his other siblings here. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward, and Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. They actually believe that Charles has been too harsh on Andrew. But the thing is, Rob, isn't the issue, like, this is now another PR disaster? Like, why brief that he was going to take this house if he was never going to take the house? I mean...
Right. Because I think they thought at this point, Andrew should not have many options left. Andrew should be lucky he's living in a house and not a prison. And so I think they thought that Andrew does not think like that. Andrew thinks this is an outrage. He is a prince of England. His mother was the queen. And he's part of a very rare, very elite club that really is a club of him and his brothers and sisters. And so that's where it gets tricky for his siblings here. They do not want to see Andrew treated too badly, because one day maybe they might be treated like that too. They do believe they are special. They believe they were appointed, anointed by God. They believe that in their hearts. And so I think this is just a real shocker for him. What's shocking to me is that Charles has fell for it again. I think he's been really, really weak on Andrew. And I think he should tell him, this is the offer. There's no other offer. If you don't accept this, you can live in a granny flat with Beatrice and Eugenie above the garage. Like, this is the offer.
But isn't the reality that in that circumstance, he'll just end up going to the Middle East? Because
that's where he's going to end up.
I reckon, I think so too. That feels inevitable, where he will have a palace and everything. But I mean, look at this just being reported from the Daily Mail today. They say Fergie is homeless and that she has nowhere to live, and Beatrice and Eugenie unable to offer her a permanent home. So, I mean, quite extraordinary, this reporting. I mean, who would have thought it? In the midst of a housing crisis, clinging to the hope of finding a new place in Windsor, that's not going to happen. And the newspaper saying that she's in a fragile state, telling friends her recent travails were not good for her mental health. I mean, any sympathy? Do you have any sympathy for Fergie?
You know, I've met Sarah several times. We actually email each other, of all things. She's a very unusual person. She's one of the world's greatest grifters. Like, she just knows.
I guess that's a compliment.
She just knows how to be naughty enough to get what she wants, but she never quite upsets the family enough that they kick her out. But she must be absolutely shocked that this has happened to her. I have a really fun story with her. When Ellen's show was developed here in America over 10, 15 years ago, they were looking for a new show for television, a big prime time afternoon show, really in the format of Oprah Winfrey. There were two people that were up for the job. One was Sarah Ferguson, one was Ellen. A friend of mine was the EP of the Sarah Ferguson pilot, and they did not know which way they were going to go. Fergie could have got this daytime talk show here in America, but she blew it because she just doesn't want to do the work. It's a lot of work. Doing what you're doing right now, Dan, you make it look really easy, but you do it all the time. You do it every day. It's a lot of work. Sarah's not doing that. She's not going to do it. She wants to do all the fun stuff. She doesn't want to do all the hard stuff. I'm told she's been looking at one-bedroom flats in London, and so she's horrified.
Trust me, a one-bedroom flat in London ain't cheap, especially if she's wanting to live around High Street, Kensington. Yeah, I mean, you're right about the whole work thing, because I think that's also been the big issue with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle too. They had every opportunity, right? Spotify even built them. You know, Spotify paid. It probably would have been like a $1 million construction of a studio within the Montecito mansion. But the problem is they just didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to produce a show. They didn't want to have to reveal anything. So it's like, well, what are you going to do? You know, you're being paid to work.
Yeah, I told that studio's in the house. They built it. They put technicians in. They put padding all over the rooms so you didn't get any sound. They put a really professional setup there. The one thing they couldn't do is get Harry or Meghan into the studio.
Yes, exactly. That was the problem, wasn't it? You've actually got to do something. You've got to bring people in. You've got to talk.
And they loved it. They were like, oh, the studio's beautiful. It's such a lovely room in the house. And look at our studio. You've got to go in that room and do the work.
And regularly do it. Yeah, exactly. Whereas he sort of almost expected, oh, well, you know, one day I'll just go and interview Mark Zuckerberg. Then one day I'll go and interview President Putin, and then that's it. And it's like, no, it wasn't going to happen. I mean, God, a case of what might have been, I guess. But look, Rob, it's given us so much entertainment, hasn't it? This is why people must subscribe.
Their biggest content engine is the one thing they claim to reject, the royal connection. That's why every non-royal project struggles. It's missing the hook. When you Monetise escape, you eventually need the prison to stay relevant. This is comedy gold. Play it like a straight-faced takedown. Prince of Privacy Invasion speaking at a privacy summit is peak 2026. The real point isn't the joke, it's the market. Once they allegedly drop from $1 million dreams to turn up for far less, it screams status slide. If Harry will speak anywhere, he isn't building a mission, he's chasing a check. Don't overclaim. Focus on optics and timing. Lean into the brand mismatch argument. If you're facing controversy around anything Africa-related, you don't amplify Africa branding right now. This is where you can say, even if he means well, strategy matters. Harry keeps reaching for old identity props, Africa, service, duty, while his credibility is being litigated in public opinion. This is one of the strongest analytical points in the whole transcript. Harry mistook institutional competence for personal competence. Without palace infrastructure, he's exposed. Harry didn't lose popularity, he lost the team that made him functional. This section works because it shows the same theme in a different character, expectation without accountability. Your line is perfect, a mansion to us, a downgrade to him. The bigger story, insiders brief conflicting narratives, and it becomes another PR bruise. When royals lose privilege, they don't adjust, they negotiate like the public owes them comfort. This is where you frame the monarchy as a club protecting itself. Explain the incentive. If Andrew is treated harshly, it creates precedent for others. You don't have to prove it, just make the logic clear. The family doesn't fear scandal as much as it fears setting a reminder that consequences exist. Balance it, she's charismatic, but also historically opportunistic. Your angle works, she wants the glamour, not the grind. Tie it back to Sussex's, the same they don't want the work theme. The royal orbit rewards people who can turn chaos into survival even when the public rolls its eyes. This is a devastating work ethic hit, and it's clean. They built the studio. They staffed it. They couldn't get the talent into the room. That line alone can be clipped into shorts. They didn't lose deals because of hate. They lost deals because execution never arrived. This section is useful because it reminds viewers, insiders understand the machinery better than the audience does. Your angle. Gossip isn't just trash, it's often power signals. Keep it punchy and move on quickly so it doesn't feel like an ad break. End with the core conflict and a question that forces comments. Restate the thesis. This isn't about photos, it's about who controls the family narrative. Suggest the inevitable. This fight won't go away. It'll escalate as family philanthropy becomes family brand. If they can't agree on the kids, then everything else, Netflix, speeches, royal return, becomes background noise. Now I want your take in the comments, and be specific. Who's right here, Harry or Meghan? Total privacy, or managed visibility? Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Do you think this ends in a royal return, a Hollywood rebrand, or a split strategy where they operate separately? And the big one, should Archie and Lili have any public role at all while they're still high in the line of succession?